Hi there, it's Lisa Starr from the Spa China Summit in 2023. We're in Harbin, China, where I have not been for 4 years now to China since pre-COVID. And the Spa China Summit has gone on in between, but most of us Westerners were not here. But luckily this year we are back, so I'm having chats with a few. Today we are joined by Trent Monday, who has been on the podcast before, Senior Vice President of Spa and Wellness for Mandara Spas in Asia. And Trent and I are going to have a little chat about what he sees in the hotel spa business right now in Asia. Because Trent oversees how many spas, Trent?
At last count, I think we had 23, just over 2 more in the Maldives in the last month. So we're maybe 25. I have to check.
So when we went into COVID, how many did you have?
We had a lot more because we also had a fairly big operation out of Vietnam. We were operating 18 spas in Vietnam, really through a license agreement more so than a management agreement. But leading into COVID, things really obviously slowed down in that part of the world. And so as a result of that, we basically parted ways with the company there. So, we've had a couple of spas that haven't reopened still, a couple that have gone into major renovations projects that were otherwise on hold, but they decided to obviously shut down during COVID times. And 3 of those in Malaysia still haven't opened yet. So they're taking the opportunity to do that major refresh and refurb that was going to happen in the next 5 years anyway, but it got accelerated a little bit.
So how many countries are your spas that you oversee in Asia?
I look after everything that's outside of the US. So anything that's not a US territory basically falls to me, which currently is 13 countries. So for me, it's not Asia Pac. I mean, it's a little deceptive to say even my own company internally refers to us as the Asia division because that's where we're based. But I oversee the spas we have in London, the spas we have in Russia, so the Middle East. So it's a fairly wide gambit, I guess.
Well, maybe you could describe for listeners a little bit about what happened for Mandara through COVID, how long, on average, I'm sure it varied by country, but how long spas were closed and what you've seen since reopening.
Yeah, it's been very interesting, obviously, for a lot of people during that period. We've all got our own stories and our own challenges, I guess. The biggest thing for me was that I had multiple countries coming in and out at various stages of various levels of restrictions. So whilst I was living in Malaysia at the time, where we had one of the strictest and earliest lockdowns in the first phase, I was also overseeing the Maldives, which had one of the least restrictive and oppressive shutdowns. They really only shut down for a few weeks at a length for about a month.
That's right. And they got all the tourists, right?
Well, correct. Everybody went to the Maldives. And if you think about it, in a time of isolation, you want to be on an island in the Maldives. Where else? I mean, you are isolated by definition. So the Maldives did very well out of that. Interestingly enough, it's struggling at the moment. We're having not a great year in the Maldives this year, as a lot of people are, because I think during that lockdown period, a lot of people did come through to the Maldives, and now they've said, well, okay, now I can go back to Europe. Now I can go back to the States and the Middle East and wherever I want to go. So the Maldives is suffering a little bit this year, I think, because of that. But I think it'll come back. But look, I mean, globally, as you know, the travel is still a long way from being normal. It's a long way from being back to where it was. The experience is still not fun. It's, the flight lift is not there. The amount of options aren't there. The amount of airlines and seat coverage isn't there. So, we're still a long way, I think, from getting back to where we were pre-COVID in terms of travel. Some may never travel again. As we know, a lot of people have gone from working in the office to working from home and doing Zoom calls instead of having conferences and meetings. That will come back to a degree, but for some, it will not, I think.
So maybe we're going to see a long-term impact in lack of travel for people who didn't really want to do it in the first place, for whom it wasn't fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the corporate travel, a lot of the business travel, a lot of that mid-level stuff will probably stop. I think at a higher level, those that still want to travel, those relationships will still need to be nurtured. And I sort of loosely describe my job as essentially shaking hands and kissing babies. I mean, that's what I do when I do my world tour, to go and check on the spas and meet with the owners and meet with the hotel general managers and meet with our teams. it's very much that personal relationship, touching base to say, hey, we're here. I've just come back recently from a trip to Russia where we went through our spas in Moscow and our spa in St. Petersburg. And the general attitude from these guys is they're just so happy to see you.
I was going to ask, so how was it going into Russia at this time?
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, I actually got a photo of when I arrived Saturday night, 8:30 in Moscow airport. And I was the only, like, I'm just walking through the airport. Nobody. I was the only one. Now, lots of people on the plane, but, you know, it was empty on a Saturday night. And driving into Moscow, and this was just a few days after the tanks headed up to Moscow, coincidentally. But driving into town, everything seemed normal. You know, the people were out walking their dogs, kids were riding their scooters. It felt normal, but it was very quiet. And then as I spent a couple of days in Moscow, you could really feel it was very quiet. A lot of the posters that used to be luxury signs and luxury goods have been replaced with recruitment posters. Catching a domestic flight then from Moscow up to St. Petersburg, a lot of military uniforms at the airport. So, yeah, and most of the big brands have gone. Most of the international brands have pulled out. And so for us to be there and still be seen to be supporting our partners of a long tenure there, there's a feeling of appreciation for saying not just thanks for coming now, but just thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for waiving fees during the COVID period. Thanks for reducing fees coming out of the COVID period. Because these guys have gone from one crisis to another, obviously, in Russia. And that, I think, sums up the COVID experience for me. And the other side of COVID has been each country at different stages, in and out, different levels. There's been there really has been no average or no consistency because each country was really, really different. You know, and a lot of countries in Asia don't have the kind of social infrastructure and support infrastructures that somewhere like the US or the UK or Australia does. So when my guys, my CEO is telling me, okay, well, when this happens in the US, we're sending people on furlough, basically, that's it. And they can rely on government support. That doesn't happen in most of the countries I look after. So it's a very different dynamic.
So what do you think about travel? Back to what we were talking about, because the corporate traveler is going to fall off, will that open up space for more leisure travelers to come and enjoy the hotels and spas? And should the hotels and spas be marketing to that person in a different way now?
Well, I don't think it necessarily opens it up. I think it's always been there as an option. The biggest issue with the corporate travelers is that they kind of underwrite the domestic travel, the leisure travelers. So the challenge for the airlines is going to be trying to make money with only leisure travelers. You know, a lot of the airfares that are discounted is because you've got those corporate guys paying for business class seats.
Right.
So the business model for the airlines is tough. And don't forget, they've lost a lot of money in the last few years. So, you know, I think the leisure travelers will still travel for sure. I think there is an element of discovery, maybe, that people do want to travel and do want to see stuff, especially after being locked down for so long. But, you know, for a lot of those people, I think they also just want to travel domestically or regionally. I think that's still going to be a big focus because, you know, during the lockdown periods, I guess people couldn't leave their home or their cities or wherever. Now they can go to the countryside. And I think it taught us more to appreciate what's on our back doorstep as opposed to having to necessarily go across the world. So I think for the next few years, I personally think there'll be still a lot more regional and local domestic travel personally. But eventually, yeah, I think it will come back for sure. And I think from a spa perspective and a hotel perspective, you've really got to look at your individual client base in that hotel, and it's going to vary.
Is it better or worse, or how is it different?
Well, define better or worse, but it's less profitable for us, right? They're not staying as long. They're not spending as much money, interestingly enough, on spa and wellness type activities. They're looking to basically go and just enjoy what's around them, right? Not the stuff in the spa, the stuff outside of the spa.
Do you think that's a factor of having been locked up, as you said, that they can just go out in the street and enjoy the local traditions and cultures and food?
Yeah, I think it depends on the guest and it depends on the location. But I think overall, yeah, people have been locked up for a period. People are still not, as we said, back to traveling properly yet. And when you get there, you want to experience what's there. You don't want to maybe just sit in your hotel and go and have a treatment for a couple of hours. You'd rather go out and actually, you know, sit on the beach or go out for a walk in the park or go and do some of those more open and natural kind of wellness activities that we talk about and we've been told to do for the last couple of years. Whereas once upon a time, we might have said, okay, if I need wellness, I'll go to the spa. You know, as we talk about in the industry, wellness doesn't live in the spa. Wellness lives outside of the spa, and the spa is just one part to that. And that's where the business model of spas and hotels needs to change, right? And it's, as you know, I've said for many years, it's, to me, the business model, particularly in hotel spas, has been broken for a long time. It hasn't changed in 20 odd years. And I think whilst this could have been an opportunity for a reset, I don't think the hotels overall have yet taken that reset. But the fact that our numbers in many of our locations are down on what they had been previously maybe does suggest that the consumers are looking for something different. And we, as the provider of that spa service, those spa treatments, and the hotel itself needs to look at repositioning and reimagining what the spa could be.
Will that involve more marketing to local people and not hotel guests? I mean, how will you approach that?
Again, it depends on where you're at. I mean, we've got a number of, most city locations that we're in already, it is the local market that is the main customer. It's not the hotel guest, because hotel guests are going to a hotel not for the spa experience. It's an add-on. It's something they do if they have extra time. Whereas the locals are there, that you can target them properly. They can come for a decent experience. So, and I think it's the same anywhere, any urban spa in a hotel, its customer base is mainly going to be locals as opposed to the in-house guests. You know, at a global scale, at global level, 1 or 2 or 3% capture rate of the guests in the hotel coming into a city spa is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Which means 97 to 99% just don't go there. Right. So, you know, I think the whole approach to what we put in a spa and a hotel needs to redefine itself. And, you know, some of the silly things that we've spoken about over the years may or may not come into play now. People say that if you're going to change the products and services in the spa, then it's not a spa anymore. To which I say, well, 25 years ago, it wasn't a spa either.
Well, what people say that?
A lot of people that are basically selling those spa products, those spa equipment, they're the people that read the spa menu. People don't know any different, right? People get, I've suggested a number of different things over the years to hotel owners and general managers. And I say your spa doesn't live on the 6th floor. Your spa should be in the lobby of a hotel. That's where your people are going to come and go. Your spa should have a food and beverage component, which is part of it. You should be able to come there in a corporate hotel and maybe get your shoes shined at the same time you're getting a foot rub. You should be able to have a cup of coffee and a donut on the way out while somebody irons your shirt, for example, in the spa. And people will say to me, that's not a spa. To which I say, well, what is? Because people forget that 25 years ago, we didn't have spas in hotels. We had massage rooms in the back of a gym. That was it.
Right.
But over the years, we've come to expect that every hotel, for certain, will have a spa. Every spa will have massage, manicure, pedicure, facial, maybe some scrubs, maybe some wraps. That's what they have. And that's not what the consumer wants anymore.
Now they want so much more from us because we're able to offer more. And I think that COVID certainly highlighted our personal need to look after our own wellness. And you can't open a magazine or a TikTok without seeing, all these really cool options that consumers want, especially in a higher end hotel. They want us to have the bells and whistles and toys that maybe they can't have at home. So you're saying that it's an inability of management to look beyond what was always the model.
Well, I think that's certainly part of it. I think you've got to understand the dynamic of hotel owners and general managers who are often driven to a short-term profit cycle and a short-term bonus cycle, for example, for a general manager. So implementing something new and crazy that doesn't work is a high risk. There's a saying back from the old early days of computers where nobody got fired for buying an IBM, which was basically when the IBM salesman would try and pitch these big corporate clients about putting in their IBM computers. They would say, but we want to try the Apple Mac because it's cool and it's got better UI or better pictures, whatever. The IBM salesman had this line, which was, you won't get fired for buying an IBM, which means if you do what is essentially the gold standard, what is the current best in class, and that doesn't work for whatever reason, it's not your fault. you've done the best you can do. If you do something crazy like buy an Apple Macintosh and that doesn't work, then you're fired because you did something crazy. So for a hotel general manager to change the current model of what a spa is, if that doesn't work, then he's fired. He's crazy because he's bought the Apple Macintosh. Mm-hmm. But if you do the same thing as every other guy down the road from your hotel does, even if it doesn't work, even if it only gets 1% of the guests, you're not getting fired for that.
Well, as a risk management strategy for preserving your job, it makes sense, but it doesn't, the long picture has to be that we have to evolve, don't you think?
Well, it does. But again, you need to think about who's making those long-term decisions. You've got to survive long enough to make a long-term decision. That's part of the problem. I think the opportunity very much is for spas to become the guide on a wellness journey for people. So, the people say they want to travel, they want to go to wellness destinations, they want to do wellness travel. Well, the spa could be your travel agent. Why are you going to a travel agent or online or wherever else? Mm. The spa experts, the people that know the business, they could help with treatment and they could get paid that way. They could, how do you find well furniture? How do you find well lighting? How do you find well clothing? All these things are really what wellness is really about. But there's no source of information really, or no one-stop shop to be able to get that information. To me, there's no reason why the spa shouldn't essentially act as your personal
wellness agent.
A wellness agent.
I love that.
Correct. So, and that in a hotel sense makes perfect sense. If you then have a business model to back that up, where they can start getting paid to do that, as opposed to just performing treatments, which you can do. You can get commissions on your bookings, you can get commissions on your sales. There's other ways to structure the business model. The other thing, though, to think about is if we want, when we travel, the latest and greatest machines and toys and wellness experiences. You want a hydrotherapy chamber, you want a cryotherapy chamber, you want our infrared beds, you want all that stuff. That stuff is expensive. And something I wrote about a few years back now was this idea of what I call the machine men, which is these people that are selling those machines will tell you that those machines are going to make you $1 gazillion, but they cost you a lot of money to buy. They might cost you $10, $20, $30, $50, $100,000 to buy that machine. The model, I think, can change whereby if that machine really does make money, don't ask the hotel to pay for that, because hotels have been beaten up for years with this idea of buying into the next trend, which really turns out to just be a next fad and doesn't even last to become a trend. And then they're stuck with that capital expense that they can't do anything with anymore because people don't want to use it anymore after the first year. What should happen, in my mind, is that these equipment manufacturers, these tool manufacturers, if you like, they are the ones that should be providing it to the hotels and then taking a slice. Don't ask anybody to pay for the capital. Not only just provide the equipment and take a slice of the revenue, bring me the operator, because I know my machine much better than you do. I know the products that go along with my machine better than your staff will ever do. I can come in and train your staff on how to sell my stuff, or I can send my people in to do it. And I can pick up my machine and I can wheel it into your spa for 3 weeks. And then after those 3 weeks, I go down the road to the next spa. Mm-hmm. So you don't have any capital out, but you're able to turn things over. Me as the operator can ensure that it's, as the builder and the manufacturer of this machine, can ensure that it's being looked after properly, it's being operated properly, it's giving the maximum benefits, we're getting the multiples of resales on the ancillary products and everything else. Then I just move it to the next place. So I think the equipment manufacturers need to rethink the way they operate as well.
Great point. Like you said, because some of that stuff is quite expensive. $7,000 and takes up room, and so that's an interesting concept. There's this new table coming online that is a massage robot table being developed in New York, and those will be leased, like building on that subscription model that everybody wants to be part of now. So a facility pays a monthly fee for it and gets the IP and gets trained on how to do it, and off they go. So I think you're right. I mean, we have to see more of that from these big equipment companies.
Yeah, I think the lease idea for equipment makes perfect sense. And a lot of the more expensive equipment gives you those kind of options. But to me, they're still missing out on the piece where me as the manufacturer and the owner of that equipment knows it better than me. I believe in the benefits of this thing much more than your receptionist does or much more than your therapist does. I believe that I can sell this product better than your people, no matter how much I train them. So I think that's where even the leasing model, which is much better than owning, but I still think they miss out that extra step. So I think you don't get the maximum revenue benefit from it. And you could argue in some senses leasing it makes the spa less invested in it as well. Because if I don't like it, I'll just move it on. Whereas if I'm operating it and I own that machine, I know how it works and I know the benefits, then chances are I'll make it work for you better.
Well, what's ahead, Trent, in the near future for the hotel spa? Maybe not like we're in the Ritz-Carlton Harbin, different animal, but you're more standard 3-star, 4-star hotel spa. What's the future for them?
Look, I think for a lot of certainly 3-star, 4-star hotels, the future is no spas as we know them, because it just doesn't make sense. In a corporate environment, having a room where you can go, or an area where you can go and have 2 or 3 treatment rooms and set up for massage, manicure, pedicure, facial, it doesn't make sense. If you're serving 1 or 2 customers a day, is it really worth it? And hotels will often have the conversation that we need the spa because it brings in guests for other things, and we can sell wedding packages and honeymoon packages and weekend packages. And that's great. But what I always say as a former hotelier, I always go to these guys and say, shut your spa down for a month and just say it's under renovation and have a look how much that impacts your bottom line of your business. Does your occupancy drop off? Do your guest complaints go through the roof? Does your ancillary revenue in your food and beverage and in your room service and everything else suffer because you don't have a spa and people aren't coming for the spa experience anymore? And in most cases, the answer is going to be no for that 3-star, 4-star corporate city hotels. And that's okay. It just means you don't need that spa. Not every hotel necessarily needs to have a spa. You can still have those services. Maybe what you need to do is have a couple of rooms assigned and have an out-call service to come in to do those treatments, right, in a limited range. You can still set up a very nice spa. You don't necessarily have the people on the payroll. Or there's other alternatives. You can literally send them down the road. One of the best gym experiences I ever had was when I was the front office manager in a hotel in Perth. We were doing our business plan. We had a gym, and our gym was so much better than everyone else's gym, we thought, because nobody else had a gym. That's what we told ourselves. Our gym was one of those horrible little universal stations that you have in your home these days. This was 20 odd years ago. Well, the competitor down the road, our nearest competitor, he had no gym. So we put in our SWOT analysis for our business plan, we have a massive strength because we have a gym he doesn't. He went down to the gym down the road, got a membership for his guests where they could go down there for free, and in the end delivered a great gym experience. We delivered a pretty crappy gym experience. Our so-called strength became a massive weakness because he took that as an opportunity and leveraged it. So, I think there's ways around it aside from just setting up a spa in a hotel. Some people say we need it because we need our star ratings. We can't be a 4-star hotel without a spa. I say when it comes to that, because I don't know that people really care about 4-star ratings or 5-star ratings anymore.
No, and let's face it, those ratings, it's time for them to be overhauled anyway. Right. I mean, sometimes they require things that just aren't done anymore, and it's not applicable to the world we live in, but they have it because of the star ratings. So I don't know who's going to be in charge of that overhaul, but it needs to happen.
Yeah, great.
Well, so what's ahead for Mandara Spas?
Look, at this stage, we are first and foremost a hotel spa management company. That's what we do. We operate spas in hotels and resorts. As part of One Spa World now, which has kind of evolved from Steiner Leisure, which was our previous parent company. That company was public, then went private, then they split off some of the pieces, and we relisted under a new company as One Spa World, which just has our spas on ships and our spas on land, which is essentially hotel spas. So that's the core of our business, and it probably always will be. I'm looking to try and have conversations with hotel owners that actually see that there is a need for change and they see that the consumers have changed. Generally, those conversations start great until you need them to actually pull the trigger and say, we're not going to build a traditional spa. And this is not about money. It's just about
allocation of other resources too.
It's not even that. It's just, I don't want to take that risk. I don't know that the consumer's ready for it. And so I think in many respects, we need, frankly, I think one of the hotel chains, much as I hate to say it, we need one of those companies to say, you know what, that's how our 4-star spas are going to look. It's going to be in the lobby of the hotel. Mm-hmm. It's going to be day spa meets airport spa meets concierge meets butler service. In our resorts, it's going to be an education hub. It's going to be a food hub. It's going to be a whole wellness zone as opposed to a spa. We need those bigger companies, I think, to roll out one of those models to see that it can actually work, to see that it can. I don't yet, maybe it's just my salesmanship. I just haven't been able to yet find the right owner who's willing to pull the trigger on it. But we'll certainly keep looking at it. I've recently moved to Thailand, and we've opened a company in Thailand where we previously operated through a license arrangement. We've now taken that license back. And so we're looking to grow our company in Thailand, especially. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in Thailand. We've just opened one spa there this year, and we're hoping to open a few more in the region. And, Thailand is a very interesting country. Obviously, it's got a very strong wellness tradition, massage tradition, but it's also fairly innovative too. The Thai people are very innovative, very entrepreneurial. Certainly it's a competitive market, but there's certainly, I think, a dynamism to Thailand that you don't get in a lot of, frankly, even Southeast Asian countries. There is that level of entrepreneurial spirit, that level of creativity that you don't get in a lot of places. So, I'm looking to have a little bit of fun. We've got one spa that we've opened at the Sheraton Royal Orchid in Bangkok, down on the river. It's got a beautiful outdoor location, which is very old and kind of run down. But we're looking to turn that into a pop-up space in a way. So we're looking to do all sorts of partnerships and launches with products and really use it as a dynamic function space, which is another potential use case for a spa. You've got these big zones, turn them into function spaces. So there's a number of different things we can do. That's kind of where we're looking at right now. I'm also interested in looking at the fusion between hotel spas and day spas. I think hotel spas have a lot to learn from day spa operators. Hotel spas tend to sit back in their luxury worlds and think we know it all. The reality is when you're on the ground and when you're a day spa operator, you've got to run that business. You've got to get that payroll covered.
Marketing, engineering, janitorial, the whole deal.
All that stuff. So, I think and at the same side, I think there's a number of things that the day spas can learn from the hotel spa operators as well. So I do think there's a lot more synergy there than competition in a way. And I think now that in my mind, a lot of those, say, 4-star and below properties probably don't need a spa. I think now is the opportunity we might see a little more fusion between hotels that want to maybe outsource their treatments to a local day spa, but they want to ensure that there's a level of service and a level of customer care and guest care that they don't currently have. So if hotels are smart, if I was running a 4-star hotel, I would be finding the closest quality spa operator. I would actually be investing money in their spa to try and make it up to my standard of my hotel. I would be training them on guest service, I'd help make their bookings, for crying out loud. If I had enough staff, I would be helping them do their reservation. And I would make that my hotel spa, but it's their spa. Mm-hmm. And find ways to get payback on that in terms of discounts or whatever else for my guests. But it doesn't matter because I give my guests an experience that they still associate with me because I sent them there.
Right. And that's what they're after, right? They want an experience that's wellness and personal, and they don't really care when their eyes are shut and they're in the treatment room where that room is. Like you said, it came from you. Well, my money's on you, Trent Monday. Well, let's see what you come up with in Thailand and your new ideas. We'll check back soon in the future.
Cool. Thank you. Great to talk.
Hello. So now I've got Laura Gamboa, the Global Spa Education Director for Natura Base, here in Harbin, China at the Spa China Summit. Laura, you and I have actually seen each other in China prior. Natura Bissé has a long history of being in the China market. So I wondered if you would share with us what you saw through COVID in terms of your product sales and what you're seeing now. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you. So first of all, I think that with COVID, all the brands that we saw is like, there's a difference in timing. Like the rest of the world was going through COVID and China was just booming. So we didn't stop working or sending orders to China. It was just like gorgeous and beautiful. Then eventually, COVID hit here once again. And then it was really an impasse.
And that was really 22, right? When that got bad.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like we can think about 2020, 2021, very different from 2022. So what we are seeing right now is that impasse has finished and everyone is coming back to the industry. People are traveling much more. It's like really many of the things that we saw in the rest of the world are taking place now. So what we saw in 2021, revenge traveling, revenge spending, and all of that, and we're seeing it now. So it's really back. And the proof is like here we have Spa China, which is bigger than ever.
Mm-hmm. Almost 400 people here.
Exactly. From the past previous years that we have been here, you can see really the improvement in the stands and the attendance.
So what has Natura Bissé experienced in the China market specifically in terms of growth? Are you keeping where you were or are you growing more accounts?
No, we're growing more accounts. I think that as for everyone, during COVID, there was a period of course, some of the accounts closed because they couldn't resist the COVID impact, but that has happened here as it has happened in the rest of the world, right? So that is unfortunate, but it's something that you have to deal with. On the other side, yes, we have seen a growth in, both day spas and spa accounts, photo spa accounts. So yes, and we continue to look for expansion. I think that above anything, consolidation, because China is such a fast market. I mean, we may think that things move faster in other parts of the world. No, it's like China moves faster.
So in what ways does that manifest itself?
Well, it manifests in a lot of pressure for brands that you really have to play harder, move faster, because the rhythm is different.
They want things tomorrow. They want it done tomorrow.
It was interesting. We were having a conversation yesterday, and somebody said, like, well, in China, we dream big and we want to get there very fast. And you just have to, so it's not like a gradual. And the spa consultant was saying, well, in other parts of the world, you see it as a gradual road, and they just want that fast track. You aim to the moon, at least you're going to reach the stars. So that is like the mentality the whole time. And it has to be, something that you have to understand when you're dealing with China.
You have brand partners here that help you navigate this market.
We have 2 distributors, but we also have a subsidiary. And that is very important, having your own eyes. And, China is not something that, as much as Westerners would like to believe that, like we know it all, and I have done it a zillion times, other places. It's a whole different ballgame. It's a world on its own. They are very proud to be, who they are, and we have to learn that and respect that. And so having a local partner is essential, and a strong and reliable partner, it has to be. So we started over 10 years ago, and we have a very good partner and for day spas. Then some years ago, actually, during COVID, we started our own subsidiary. So we have our own office here with our own team. That helped us as well to actually, have different inputs. Not only our distributors want, but as well our own teams want. And now that we can travel, we've been back and forth. And I think that every other brand is doing the same thing. Every Western brand, as soon as, after COVID, it reopened, everyone's going back.
It's probably really helpful to have younger people that are local also on your team because they really know the trends much better than we could.
Exactly. And as commented before, China moves so fast. So you really have to be attentive. Even on the conversation that we had earlier with someone from Brett that was saying, like, we're renewing our whole product. offer, because it just moves so fast that we just need to catch up. So that's the thing. It's like your timings, your time to market, and your response times have to really be faster, and you need to keep that in mind.
So what is the sort of, say, top selling product in China?
Inhaler collection is extremely popular. It even has like its own like a fat bottle, and it is very important to keep in mind that Chinese consumers are very savvy, and really, really results oriented. So when they see that something works, and you give them proof as well, that's it. They are very interested, but they are savvy. They are curious, so they are going to be really, really, really auditing all the information that you provide and contrasting and asking questions. So it is very interesting market to work on, and as well as challenging. From the registration point of view, from the very beginning, you have to work so much harder in the other country to actually get your products registered.
Well, my last question, Laura, is it's a big world. You're present in all of it. Do you consider in the future developing products based on the desire in this market? Does that drive your product development?
So and it has been a learning curve. So it has been from the beginning of sending samples, and some of the suppliers will say like, oh, we send samples to here, to here, to here. No, yes, we do send samples, but we're one step before, where we are actually integrating them from the design. What are the requirements? How do you see this problem being approached? Because we work on skincare, so we still believe that there's so much to do on skin mechanisms to be, exploited and worked over. But then we need to know that there's a match. We cannot just think like, oh, we have the answer for everything. No, they have their input. They are proud of their input. We need to work together, and that's why we actually integrate them on the design phase.
Well, good for you for being such a progressive company. It shows why you're such a popular product throughout the world. Good for you. Thank you for joining us. Well, now we are joined by Paul Keegan, the Senior International Trainer for DB Milano, which is a skincare and cosmetics brand, part of the Alpha Parf companies, which many of us know, huge Italian brands. Paul is here with me at the Spot China Summit, and I wanted to ask him what the DB Milano journey has been like coming into China. Paul, thank you for joining us, first of all.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
And what was the date that DB first entered the China market?
Well, I think we've been in Asia and flirting with the Chinese market, I can say, for many, many years, even as far back as maybe 20, 25 years ago when I first started working with DB Milano. But let's put it this way. DB Milano has officially and strongly entered the Chinese market since about 2018. So right before the pandemic.
Kind of tricky timing. I bet it started off great.
Yes, we started off very well and very strong, and with an excellent and strong distributor. You know them. The company is called Joy Plus. They have offices all throughout China. They're a very big company. They represent other European brands, so we knew we were in very good hands with this distributor. Yes, we started out very strong in spa in particular, but also moving into retail quite quickly, I would say. And yes, the pandemic did slow us down, but fortunately we were in touch with them, and they, along with our other distributors, were informed about all of our company launches and processes through Zoom the entire time. But it is also true that after the export director, Mr. Anini, and myself, we travel often as a team, came back here and stepped into their offices and started having chats and dinners and lunches and just being present, we realized that our absence was, hugely consequential for the business. Let me just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. When were you able to start coming back here physically?
Oh my gosh. My first trip back was this last May, 2023. Matteo came earlier in the year. Okay. I was just busy with other things, and he came earlier and had his first business meetings with our distributors. Interestingly, we're talking about DB Milano, of course, but we have another brand that we actually opened another distributor a little more in this region of China during the pandemic. And so when we came in May, it was the first time we physically met these people.
Amazing. And distributing a different brand, not DB.
Different one of our brands, okay. And starting very well also. And even during the pandemic, they were doing business. And I remember the launch, I literally helped them launch the brand in Zoom.
Amazing how we all learned how to use Zoom, right?
We did.
So it sounds like the DB business was a little bit disrailed, shall we say, came back, and now what's the plan to get things back on track?
Well, to be very honest, the retail business has done well for them, and so taken a little bit of precedent. But I'll be very honest, both Matteo and I feel so strongly about DB Milano as a professional aesthetics and spa brand that we are pushing them very hard to not forget the professional. We had a couple of very interesting visits to spas that are using our brand. We were very fortunate to be able to literally step into to not the final client, but the spa, and see what was happening and have a real bird's eye view. Not always possible. And while our brand is present, we have so many ranges. We have such good professional treatments that we're pushing a little harder to do more training, make sure they know all the options that are available. And that's also because it's an expense, both for the distributor and for our company. Registration of products in China is complicated and expensive. So if they go to the expense and the disturbance of registering, a necessary disturbance, of course, we're telling them, look, you registered this range. Let's get it into the spa.
You have to register each product separately, correct? For retail versus professional.
Everything. And as we heard yesterday on one of the spa panels, you really have to back up your claims. So it involves a lot of different, divisions of our company. We have a regulatory division, which is going to have to then go to the laboratory, which is going to have to go to the clinical testing units, which is going to have to go to raw materials. And literally, they're asking us for a lot of paper, a lot of documentation. We have it all, but just kind of that bureaucratic mess of collecting it all and making sure they get everything they need it can lengthen the time from when they start to register to when the product is finally registered.
Well, certainly we know that doing business in China is never made easier by any of the bureaucracy that's in place. So they want you to jump through some hoops, and when your company is willing to do that, the rewards are quite significant.
Oh, yes. Meaning that, again, we're pushing for more ranges, but in the end, if you're just thinking on a business level, you can probably do as much volume with lesser products, just more sales, essentially, especially when you go into retail.
The numbers work in your favor, as you recall. When I was speaking yesterday, my research showed that the Gen Z numbers in China were around 230 million people, just Gen Z.
Yeah.
So
which is what 3/4 of what our population in the U.S. is, I think. Yeah, roughly.
So it's definitely worth it. It's interesting what you say about the challenge between retail and professional. They seem to understand easily the retail, bring it in, sell it at retail.
Easy.
But having a different professional range and the distribution into spas is a little bit more complicated, right?
Yes, it is. As it always is in the professional business. Professional cosmetics are a little complicated. You have treatment methods, you have treatment boxes with lots of little pieces. It's also complicated to make. Italians are very creative, and we have a lot of different types of packaging. But we find, and also through our clinical tests, that the professional treatment will give a very good result. Of course, it will give that extra tool to the spa so that they can say, look, I'm doing this according to method, and look what it's doing to your skin. Retail, of course, is part of that equation. I'm always interested in our clinical tests. Sometimes I see that with 5 professional treatments, we get result X, and then the test subjects go on using the product for another 2 weeks usually. And I see, looking at the test, that the result really does increase significantly after just those last 2 weeks of using the retail too.
Well, this gives you confidence in your own products.
Yes, yes. It always. I mean, I always say I'm our company's biggest skeptic. So I really study, and part of my job is explaining the clinical tests we do. I really look at them. The information I have. I'm not privy necessarily to the whole. What do we call it? The whole document, the whole fascicola is the word in Italian. But I do look very closely. I study them very closely, and I always am kind of amazed. I'm like, hey, yeah, guess what? That's really working,
Well, Paul, you're living the life as a California native, but now living in Italy, traveling the world. I mean, what are the prospects for DB globally? Where are you putting your efforts into growing the brand?
Very, very good question. Okay, right now we're concentrating again now that we can travel on the Asian market, the Chinese market in particular, and we have always been strong in other Asian countries, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam. We're starting again, and we want to be strong again in Vietnam. A lot of competition from the French brands there. But our
French language connection, I'm sure.
Yes, I think you're right about Vietnam. French language, exactly. And we are starting to put more effort into the Middle East as well. I think I mentioned that we hired a Chinese export manager for China and Asia. That frees up our export director to really concentrate on the Middle East, the GCC countries. And that's an amazing market too, very different, whole different business model. And we want to get into the US. But I will be very honest, and it's always been sort of a disappointment for me, being a US citizen, that our business for skincare, while hair care is quite strong, I think a lot of people in the US know Alpha Parf Milano and Alpha Parf hair care, but our skincare business in the US has not been easy. So that's kind of my personal thing, but our main focus right now is still Asia and the GCC countries, as well as Europe and a little bit South America too. I won't say we can ignore South America. Alpha Parf has always been strong there. We have a Spanish gentleman who is the export manager for South America. Of course, he habla español, so that's perfect. And he's developing with some of our other brands, like our Solarium brand, which is a sun care brand, and things that you might not think, but it's a sunny place, right? So,
Sure.
People need SPF, they need a sun care. So,
well, lucky for you and Alpha Parf and DB Milano, the world is a very big place, and there's a place for quality skincare. So thanks again for joining us, Paul Keegan, and I'll see you again this afternoon in the conference.
Can't wait. Thank you, Lisa.